Hello, today is Tuesday, June 23rd, 2015, and I am your host, Sue Brown, and welcome to info2rail, your freight train to modern media. How y'all doing today? Well, today you get a double show from us. We have two guests on in one day. I did an interview earlier today, and this is the second one of the day, so you guys get a double whammy. Welcome to our show, and we have a great show for you again today. We're very fortunate to have author, speaker, and lucid dreamer Robert Waggoner with us today. First, we're going to take a little glimpse into the missing persons files. The first one we have for you is Jeffrey Maximiliano Morales, age 22, was last seen in Houston, Texas on June 4th, 2015. He is 5 foot 11 inches tall, weighs 130 pounds, has black hair and brown eyes. He was last seen wearing a green baseball cap, green t-shirt, and gray shorts. Also missing is his black 2014 Ford Mustang with temporary tags. Anyone with any information on his location, please contact the Harris County Sheriff's Office at 713-221-6000 or 713-274-9360. Our second one for you today, it's a girl and armed robbery suspect possibly en route to Oregon. Frankie Hoon Collins, age 17, was last seen in Arco, Idaho, June 12, 2015. Frankie is believed to be traveling with Tony Gerald Parsons, age 25, who is a suspect in an armed robbery at the Moravik gas station in Gooding, Idaho, at about 11:40 p.m. Monday, 6/15/2015. Tony was wearing a black zip-up hoodie turned backwards to cover his face, with blue jeans, white shoes, and what appeared to be a turquoise shirt under his hoodie. He is 6 foot tall, weighs 185 pounds, has brown hair and green eyes. He was last seen driving a stolen maroon 2001 Dodge pickup with a camper shell with license plate 4L910. Frankie is 5 foot 11 inches tall. He weighs 160 pounds, has brown hair, brown eyes, and has a tattoo on the back of her neck of a black sun with the words "Blind Melon." Anyone with any information on her location, please dial 911 immediately or contact the BUTTE, the Butte County Sheriff's Office, 208-527-8553. We're going to take a short break, and when we return, we'll have Robert Waggoner with us. Stay tuned. Don't go away. We'll be right back. Okay, we are back with Robert Waggoner. Author Robert Waggoner is past president of International Association for the Study of Dreams. For the past 10 years, he has been the co-editor of the online magazine The Lucid Dreaming Experience, the only ongoing publication devoted specifically to lucid dreaming. A lucid dreamer since 1975, he has logged more than 1,000 lucid dreams. Robert frequently speaks on lucid dreaming at national and international dream conferences, workshops, and college classrooms like Sonoma State University, Iowa State University, University of Washington, University of Michigan, Ann Arbor, and Evergreen State College, and internationally at Tel Aviv University and Hebrew University, Jerusalem, Israel. Robert has been interviewed by CNN, CBS News and ABC News, KABC in Los Angeles, about the practice of lucid dreaming. His comments have appeared in media as diverse as DETAILS The Huffington Post, Pittsburgh Post Gazette, Popular Science, and Brides Magazine. During 2009 to 2010, he had a regular Iowa public radio show discussing dreams and lucid dreaming. Hello, and welcome to info2rail, Robert, and thank you so much for being on the show.
Hey, I'm glad to be here. Thank you so much for the invitation.
Can you start out by telling us about you and how you got interested in lucid dreaming?
Well, I was a young guy growing up in the Midwest and had a pretty active dream life. I started to notice that I was having precognitive dreams on occasion and just some really powerful dreams. But it wasn't until I was like 17 years old that I was reading a book by Carlos Castaneda, the book's Journey to Ixtlan. And in that book, his shamanic teacher, Don Juan, suggests to him that he become aware in his dreams and realize he's dreaming. And so reading that, it made me wonder if a person could really become aware in their dreams. And so that night I started a practice, and within a few nights had my first lucid dream. So that was back in the spring of 1975. So I've been lucid dreaming now for 40 years.
Can you tell us what lucid dreaming is?
Yeah, so lucid dreaming is when you realize within a dream that you're dreaming. For example, the very first spontaneous lucid dream I had was found myself at the public library, and all of a sudden I see a little Tyrannosaurus Rex walking through the book stacks, and at that moment it occurred to me, wait a second, aren't dinosaurs extinct? And so there I was, 10 or 11 years old, and I realized, oh yeah, dinosaurs are extinct. Oh, this must be a dream. And at that moment I realized, oh, I'm dreaming this. This is a dream. But I didn't know you could do anything, so I just automatically told myself to wake up, and I did. But a lucid dream is any dream in which you realize within the dream that you're dreaming. And so as soon as you realize that, of course, you can begin to decide what you want to do, what actions you want to perform, and just how you want to proceed from there on.
How would we go about figuring out how to know that we're consciously aware that we're dreaming?
Well, there's a lot of techniques, and especially in this new book that I have, Lucid Dreaming, Plain and Simple, we have a lot of techniques on how to become lucidly aware and how to stabilize the lucid dream so you don't immediately pop out. And so the way that I did it back in 1975, in the book Journey to Ixtlan, the shamanic teacher of Carlos Castaneda, Don Juan, told him to find his hands in the dream state and realize he was dreaming. And so there really wasn't a technique, so I just kind of made up my own technique at the time, which was before I went to sleep, I sat in my bed and just looked at the palms of my hands while mentally repeating to myself over and over, tonight in my dreams, I'll see my hands and realize I'm dreaming. Tonight in my dreams, I'll see my hands and realize I'm dreaming. Tonight in my dreams, I'll see my hands and realize I'm dreaming. And it was so amazing. I'd do that for about 5 minutes and go to sleep. And when I'd spontaneously wake in the night, first I'd think what I just dreamt and if I'd seen my hands. But on the third night, I'm walking through my high school hallway when all of a sudden my hands just pop right in front of my face. And I think, oh, my hands, this is a dream. And it was such an incredible mind trip to realize that these figures over there, those guys that look like football players, they're dream figures. And this wall over here that looks so solid and felt so real, it's just dream stuff. It's a mental projection. And I went on to just have an incredible lucid dream experience that first time I induced it myself. So that was a technique I used where my hands were the signal or the prompt to make me question the reality and say, oh, this is a dream. So that's one way a person can become lucidly aware and realize they're dreaming, by creating a dream sign like that that'll remind them to question that they're dreaming.
Once we're aware that we're in a dream state and we're actually dreaming, how is it we let go and just, have fun with that?
Well, yeah, so that's the one interesting thing that is probably the most prominent thing. There was a survey by Melanie Schadlick, lucid dream researcher in Germany, and so she asked lucid dreamers, well, what do you do when you become lucidly aware? And I think the highest number, like 86% of the respondents, said they played around and have fun. Because as soon as you realize, oh, this is a dream, then if you're thoughtful, you realize, well, wait a second, if this is a dream, then I can fly around, I can walk through walls, I can swim underwater, I can talk to animals, I can do pretty much whatever I want in a lucid dream. So basically all you have to do is just focus your intent and do it. But the problem is that it's a little bit more complicated than that. And so in our book we give a lot of explanations of how you're not manipulating the dream so much as you're manipulating your own mind, because you've got to use your beliefs and expectations and all to maneuver and manipulate within the lucid dream. But it's easy just to let go and have fun. Now Now, Stephen LaBerge, in his first book, Lucid Dreaming, back in 1985, he came up with the idea of surrendering in a lucid dream. So you could become lucidly aware, realize it's a dream, and then you could announce, I surrender to the highest, or something like that, and then see which way the lucid dream will take you. In my book, Lucid Dreaming, Gateway to the Inner Self, I suggest that people do it a little bit more proactively by becoming lucidly aware and then just announcing something to the larger awareness or the awareness behind the dream, just like, show me something important for me to see. And when you shout out a request like that, oftentimes in a lucid dream, then you're basically letting your unconscious mind show you something important, and so the entire lucid dream can change in that moment. And so the beautiful thing about lucid dreaming, it allows us, I think, to get in touch with our larger self, with our creativity. We can surrender to it, we can go along with it, we can ask it to show us something important, and that way we can really gain by those moments of lucidity.
Beside lucid dreaming, we have dreams as well that tell us things, like messages. What kind of dreams would they be where we're having a dream that, like my dad died in October and he comes back in my dreams, and those are the dreams that he seems to have something that I need to know, or something he needs to say to me.
Right. So there's kind of two different types of dreams we could talk about here. The first is what we normally would call visitation dreams, in which the deceased appear in our dreams, sometimes with a message, or sometimes for some reason that's hard to figure out. So oftentimes for lucid dreamers, that's when they become lucidly aware, because they realize, wait a second, Dad's been dead now almost a year. Oh, this must be a dream. And so if you can become lucidly aware at that moment, then you can interact with that deceased dream figure. Now it's a little bit hard to know immediately, am I dealing with a dream symbol, kind of a projection of myself, a projection of my mind, or am I actually dealing with the spiritual essence of my father? And so I'll tell you how I resolved this for myself. My dad passed away about 17 years ago, and a few months after he passed away, I decided in a lucid dream I was going to go find him. And so I started to do that, and it was really interesting. All the dream figures in that lucid dream told me that it wasn't the right time yet, that it wasn't proper to do it. And they convinced me to not go in search of my father. And so at that moment I thought, okay, I'll just wait till my father wants to come visit me. And so it was about 3 years after he passed. One night I see a ladder, and coming down the ladder is my father. And all of a sudden I realized, oh, this is a dream, because he passed away 3 years ago. But then at first I started to laugh because he had such a bad haircut. And I thought, this poor guy cannot even get a good haircut in the after-death state. I mean, that's how bad his haircut was. But then I began to wonder, well, wait a second, is this my dad a dream symbol, a projection of my mind, or is this my dad as a spiritual being, as an afterlife essence? And so I went up to him, and we greeted each other. And the first thing I did, I said, Dad, you're from the land of the dead. When do you think Mom will pass away? Because I thought if I could ask him questions and get answers, then I could confirm whether I was actually meeting with my dad, a spiritual being, or just a dream symbol. And so when I asked him that question, he looked at me and just said, she'll probably pass away in 2 to 6 years. And I said, of what? And he replied, a heart condition. And that really surprised me, because my mom had never had any heart problems. And then I asked him a couple more questions, and finally he told me to be quiet, because he came to tell me things. And then he told me some things about the family, and about 3 or 4 points that he wanted me to be aware of. And so in the morning, I woke up and I thought, well, gosh, he said Mom would probably pass away in 2 to 6 years. It was 23 months later, almost 2 years exactly, when
my mom went to the hospital and almost died of a heart condition. And this is something she'd never had any problems with in her life. And then a few years after that, she went back to the hospital and almost died again because she was taking a prescription drug that was actually harming her heart. And so she made it through that 2 to 6 year period and continues to live today. I mean, she's almost 90 years old. So it was kind of interesting to get this valid information from this dream figure of my deceased father, which makes it kind of seem or kind of validate that it was an actual meeting with the spiritual essence of my father. So lots of people have visitation dreams or interactions with the deceased in their dreams. But I'll tell you, if you can become lucidly aware, then it's very much like the conversation we're having right now. You can ask questions, you can have a back and forth. Just because you're deceased doesn't mean that you're necessarily brilliant or all wise. But what it does suggest, though, that you might have a different perspective on things and some different insight on things. So it's a fascinating thing when you become lucid, because if that doesn't convince you that something survives our physical death, I don't know what will.
For me, it was kind of silly. I was standing in the kitchen, and, he walks out in the kitchen, and I turned around, looked at him, and I said, "What are you doing here? You're dead."
Oh, wow.
And he said, looks down at himself. My father had that. He had a character all of his own. He was one of the most amazing men. And he, good sense of humor. He looks down, he says, "If I don't look dead to me, feel fine, better than I ever did." And without missing a beat, I looked at my mother and I said, "Mom, if Dad's not dead, whose ashes are in that urn?"
Oh, funny.
And my mother said, "I don't know, but we better figure it out." It was just it was so silly, it was stupid, but at the same time, I got the message that he was sending. I'm fine, I'm not hurting anymore. I'm not suffering.
Right.
Because, the cancer, the last 9 days were the worst thing I've ever seen in my life.
Oh,
so
gosh.
for me, that was, I was begging God, just take my dad home.
Yeah,
You know what? I am not selfish. I will see my dad again. Just, bye. Let him go. And for me, that was his way of saying, you know what? I'm happy, healthy, fine. No problems here, but it's the silliness. And for me, I wish I'd have known it was a dream, because it was so silly and stupid. But it was one of those things. If he's still here, then whose ashes are those? And nothing skipped a beat. It was all normal.
Yeah, I remember after my father died, I was having this dream within the month after he passed away, that there was something in his suit coat in the closet that he wanted us to get. And in the dream, I had the sense that it was like $40 or something. And when I'd wake up, I think, gosh, I'm not going to bother my mom, for $40 or something. This is just too crazy. But then about a month or two later, I was with one of my nieces, who's a good dreamer, and I asked her if she'd had any dreams of Grandpa since he passed away. And she said, "Oh, yeah, he keeps coming to me and telling me there's something in the closet he wants us to get." And I go, "What?" Because she was having the same dream interaction that I was with my deceased father.
That's awesome.
And so after that, I thought, okay, I'm going to call my mom. And so I did. I called my mom and said, "Look, my niece and I are both having the same dream, and there's something in the suit in the closet." And so she went and found that in one of his suit pockets, he had a bunch of family photos, like 4 or 5 family photos. And so I think that's what he wanted us to be sure we got before my mom gave all the clothes away to Salvation Army or Goodwill or something. So it's interesting when you have those confirmations, because it shows you that there's more going on here than just waking physical life. And even though you might have your dad's ashes, in an urn someplace, that the essence of your dad is still out there in kind of a mental or spiritual realm, if you prefer.
What kind of dream would I know what kind of dream it was, but in 1990 I kind of left my body behind, and That morning when I woke up, I just knew. I said to my mom, I had cosmetology class, and I said, I can't go today because my grandpa's going to die. And it was her dad, and it was probably the wrong thing to say. I should have shut my mouth and kept it to myself, but for some reason, I just knew. I went in and laid back down and went to sleep, and a couple seconds later, my body wasn't up there watching what was going on, but I was. And I had watched him. His whole actions that morning were totally out of character. He'd always gone to the store to get the paper and ate his breakfast. And that morning, everything was just not what it was supposed to be. He got up and he put my cousin on the bus. And when he came in the door, he dropped dead in his chair.
Wow.
And I watched this, not with my body, but with my soul. I watched this happen. I watched every, detail of his morning. And then all of a sudden, my dad was shaking me on the couch and he said, your grandfather just had a heart attack. They don't think he's going to make it. And I said, no, the main artery to his heart clogged, and he was dead before he even fell.
Wow.
And I just knew details. So,
wow. It's amazing that we can have these kind of experiences where we have that kind of level of detail. One thing that helped me was this.
Before my father passed away, so he was getting into his 80s and his health was failing and all. But I told my larger self that I wanted to know about my father's coming physical death. And so I didn't want to self-censor it. I didn't want to shut down the information flow, because I feel like all of us, like you've talked about in the case of your grandpa, that information comes to us, but if we censor ourselves or if we don't want to know, then we shut down the communication. And so that's why I was telling my larger awareness that I wanted to know. And boy, the year before my father passed, it just kept giving me more and more information about his coming passing. And for me, I found it kind of comforting, even though it's always a shock when your loved ones pass away and they're no longer in physical reality with you. But still, I remember the morning my father passed away. He passed away at 4 o'clock in the morning. And exactly at that moment, I think when he passed, our cat, who had never done this before, somehow it jumped from the floor right onto my belly, on my gut, as I was sleeping in bed. And so I just totally sat up in bed because of the shock of the cat jumping on my belly. And then about 4 minutes later, the phone rang. And as soon as that phone rang, I knew that my father had passed. But it's an extraordinary experience. And when you get this kind of dream information or out-of-body information, it can really help you get over your own fear of it, and also kind of be a comfort, I think, for the family as well.
I think that's what it was for me, because I was 18 years old and I didn't, I never lost anyone that close. I've lost friends and stuff like that, but that stuff doesn't hit home until it's somebody like, we lived 3 houses down from my grandparents my whole life. Wow. So we were very close, and that's who watched me when my parents worked, and I was always with my grandparents if I wasn't home. And so for me, grandparents don't die.
Yeah.
My dad's mom passed when he was 17, but I didn't have that experience. But for me, that was the first time I lost somebody that close to home, and it hit me. I have 2 weeks to a month where I don't remember anything I did. I don't remember coming out of my room. I don't remember eating. I don't remember anything. And then all of a sudden, I'm aware one day that I'm, out and about in the store, and I'm like, how did I get here? It's like that point in time of my life, it's shut me down because I did not know how to deal with such a, traumatic experience. But I think that set me up for when I lost my dad.
Yeah.
Because when I lost my dad, it was so peaceful. It was hard, and everyone was crying. But at the same time, it was open the door and let them go. Just
that's so true. I remember my mother-in-law passed away, and so I had a lucid dream in which I learned about kind of where her mental state was about 9 months before she passed. And so I was able to help my wife and her sisters kind of help their mother deal with some issues that needed to be dealt with. But on the weekend that she passed, we were there helping to move her from the assisted care facility to the nursing home. And I remember the moment when we told her we'd done all we could do and we were getting ready to leave her there with the oldest sister. And so all of a sudden she sits up in bed just like a little kid, even though she is in her mid to late 80s. And I bent down to give her a kiss goodbye. And the wild thing was there was light coming out of her face, like somebody had put a 60-watt bulb, behind her eyes. I mean, there was light coming out of her face. And I thought, whoa, that's strange. And I walked out to the hallway, and then my wife, her daughter, gave her a kiss goodbye. And when my wife came out to the hallway, I asked her, did you see what I just saw? And my wife said, you mean the light coming out of her face? And I said, darn right, there's light coming out of her face. I mean, that was just totally wild. And 3 or 4 hours later, she passed over. But seeing that light kind of gave me the confirmation that her passing was a good one, that she had resolved these issues that I'd seen 9 months earlier that she needed to resolve, and so that now she could kind of go on without all that stuff kind of holding on to her or keeping her back. But yeah, it's a powerful thing. Dreams and visitation dreams of the deceased, they're just extraordinarily powerful events.
Now, do we have to be careful when we're lucid dreaming? A lot of people have told me in some of the dream books I've read. I've been a tarot card reader most of my life, and I've been into this stuff a lot of years. I've been told a lot of times, though, that if you fall off a cliff and you actually hit the ground, your heart stops and you'll die in your sleep. I'm told that if you're shot and you actually, if your body physically dies in your dream, then it will shock your heart and kill you in your sleep.
Sue, I just don't see that happening. Instead, here's what I see a lot of lucid dreamers do. They do things that, like I did, jump off a 24 floor skyscraper and see what it's like to hit the ground. And I mean, basically, you're falling, and then all of a sudden, boom, you kind of bounce on the ground like a cat, and you get up. So in the lucid dream state, you'll see a lot of examples of lucid dreamers who have done all that kind of stuff, jumped off cliffs, shot themselves, the whole thing, and all of them live to tell about it. So I know it's kind of there might be kind of a fear element or a shock element that might bother some people, but for the average person, I think they can do all of that in a lucid dream and not have to worry that they're going to harm themselves.
I think that's what holds me back in that, because a lot of times I know I'm dreaming, but I don't dare to, just enjoy the dream because I'm afraid that I'm going to hurt myself and not wake up.
The amazing thing is people normally report just having so much fun. When you can go flying around, when you can walk through walls, when you can talk to dream figures, it can just be absolutely so much fun. And there's so much more you can do after that. Emotional healing, physical healing, accessing creativity, all that kind of thing. And so I don't think the average person shouldn't have any concerns about lucid dreaming. Now, when I go out and give talks at universities and conferences and stuff, I'll tell people, especially when I'm talking to young people, if you can't handle waking reality, then I don't want them to get involved in lucid dreams, because you need to feel relatively safe and secure in waking reality before you go and try to become consciously aware in the reality of dreams and mess around. So if you feel okay in waking reality and you're getting along just fine, then I think you'll do just fine. It's just people who aren't doing very well in this reality. I don't think they should be mucking around in other realities.
I see on your website you talk about the science of lucid dreaming. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
It's a wonderful story because The story of lucid dreaming is really an ancient story, but that's only been scientifically validated here in the last 35 years. So historically, lucid dreaming has been a fundamental practice of Tibetan Buddhist dream yoga. So becoming consciously aware within the dream state, oftentimes, in their view, shows us the created nature of reality, how it's, in some terms, a kind of a Maya, an illusion, and gives people insights about the true nature of reality. Also, it's been used in Sufism since the 11th century. It's been used in Taoism for thousands of years, and in shamanic practices in various native traditions for many, many thousands of years. So here's this ancient spiritual technique that modern science just didn't believe in because they didn't feel there's any scientific evidence. But that all changed back in the late 70s. It was first at the University of Hull in England, where a British researcher, Keith Hearn, who was a graduate student, he was thinking, how could you prove lucid dreaming existed? And then it occurred to him, well, gosh, in a normal dream, we have rapid eye movements. Our eyes are kind of fluttering around. So he wondered, could you bring a lucid dreamer into the sleep lab and tell them, look, when you become lucidly aware, move your eyes left to right 8 times, and we'll have those rapid eye movement polygraph pads on your eyes that'll be making the record of your eye movement. And so if you move your eyes left to right 8 times, that'll confirm that you're consciously aware within the dream. And so back in 1975, Alan Worsley, a really talented lucid dreamer, he did that in the sleep lab at the University of Hull in England. It was about 2.5 years later, Stephen LaBerge, who was a graduate student at Stanford, he realized the same thing, that in a lucid dream you can move your eyes left to right and signal that you're consciously aware within the dream. And so in February of 1978, using himself as a subject in the sleep lab there, he signaled with his eyes that he was consciously aware. And so LaBerge went on to kind of publish his research more prominently and earlier than Keith Hearn. And so back in 1980, the evidence for lucid dreaming came out. And at first, people were stunned. They couldn't believe that you could become consciously aware within the unconscious. But it was easy for other labs to replicate the experiment and show that people could signal that they were consciously aware, even though they were dreaming. But they were consciously aware within the dream. And so that's how the science of lucid dreaming got started. Since that time, there's been a lot of research on the physical body in lucid dreams. So, if you lucid dream and move your muscles, will your physical body muscles move and all that kind of stuff. There's been lucid dream studies on lucid dreamers interacting with dream figures. There's been all sorts of lucid dream research that's been conducted. But the important thing, though, is lucid dreaming is a bridge between this ancient spiritual technique that Naropa called one of the 6 paths to enlightenment. It's this ancient spiritual technique has now been accepted by science. And so it gives us a new way to explore the nature of the mind, the nature of the unconscious, and also to explore these bigger issues like what happens to people after they die. Do deceased dream figures show us that there's an awareness that exists after the death state? If we can get information from them that we can scientifically validate when we wake, does that provide evidence? And also it gives us the capability to explore the nature of clairvoyance and precognition. When you're consciously aware in a dream, you can seek out information outside of your knowing, like precognitive information or clairvoyance, information that's happening someplace apart from you. You can wake up with it, give it to the researcher, and see if it's valid or not. And so lucid dreaming offers all of us a powerful spiritual technique and also a powerful scientific technique to
confirm or validate some of these spiritual issues that people have been talking about for thousands of years.
What is it when we're dreaming? Are we in a different realm? Is that what happens when we dream?
Gosh, that's $1 million question there. The interesting thing about lucid dreaming is it shows that dreams are not chaos and random. That when you're in a lucid dream, you see that there's actually principles, there's rules that you have to follow in order to stay within the lucid dream and not pop out or not be forced to wake up. And so there's rules and principles involved there. And because there's rules and principles, it makes it seem much like an alternate dimension, like a dimension of the mind or a dimension of the subconscious or something like that. So yeah, that's another beautiful thing that we might discover, that dreams show us that there's more than the physical dimension, that there's other dimensions and they're accessible through this revolutionary tool of lucid dreaming.
I have a reoccurring dream a lot, and that's when I'm stressed. I go to this house, and this house I've never seen in my awake life, but I've been going to this house for a lot of years. But I go there, and there's no grass on the ground. It's just dirt with a driveway that goes up to a house.
Yeah.
And it just looks like this flat house, little teeny thing. And I get to the door, and I have the keys, and I say to myself, I know I'm not supposed to be here, but I have to be. And I take the keys out, unlock the door, and I go in, and it's this, 4-story house that's round, and all the walls are, just rounded, and there's knickknacks from the floor to the ceiling, and there's a spiral staircase that goes up the wall and bends around, and, this big living room that's, like, huge, and I walk through this swinging door into this big, huge kitchen, and it's crazy because I've never seen this house, not on the inside or the outside. But for some reason, if I'm stressed or if things, if I'm having a rough time and I go to sleep that way, it seems I always, as soon as I get to sleep, I'm at this house, and it's the same thing every time. I know I'm not supposed to be here, but I have to be.
Wow. Yeah, it's interesting. I'm a member of the International Association for the Study of Dreams, and there, when you go to the conferences and all, there's people giving talks on dreams and also on lucid dreams and on the history of dreams and the science of dreams and all that kind of stuff. But recurring dreams are one of those fascinating areas because they keep happening, and it's just not a random symbol. It's one specific symbol, oftentimes, like a house in your case, or for someone else it might be a tornado or heaven knows what. But yeah, it's interesting to think, why that house, why that shape, why that scenario, and it may be that there's some connection that you have with this shape, or it might be that there's something more going on here, that it's possibly some memory from some other time or something that's just filed away in your brain in a strange place. But yeah, that's interesting.
I often wonder if, that's where I live in my dreams, if that's my house.
The dream house.
Yep, basically.
It is kind of interesting that it's a round house with 4 levels and all. I know for Carl Jung, oftentimes the number 4 was, I believe, kind of the number of completion. And so something with 4 levels or something, I think in his view of things would be something that was complete or whole or full or something like that. And perhaps that's why you like going back there, is because it's the place where you feel whole whenever you're feeling insecure or full of anxiety about something.
Well, I'm feeling when I get there like, you know what, you didn't pay your rent, so you're not supposed to be here. And it's silly, but at the same time, I'm like, well, I got the keys in my pocket, and this is where I need to be right now. And from the outside, it looks like a 1-story, little puny little house, and it's like those cups that you can, they're flat one minute, and you open them up, and all of a sudden you got a full cup, and it's. I walk in, and there's just this full house, and it's crazy.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's great. That's great. It's a beautiful image, and that's one thing I like about this International Association for the Study of Dreams. You go there to the various conferences and stuff, and you can work on your dream symbols. And sometimes when you're there with somebody who's kind of leading a workshop and you can work on your own dream symbols, sometimes you can get some real insight into what that dream symbol is all about.
I think that is fascinating. I would love to attend one of those. I just think that would be so fun.
They're really a blast. And also, I should say, there's some wonderful people who have written some good books on dream interpretation. So there's Gayle, Gayle, Gayle Delaney. Almost all of her books on dream interpretation are really just excellent. And also there's Patricia Garfield, and almost all of her books on dreaming are just excellent. Her one on dream interpretation is called The Universal Dream Key. And then, of course, there's lots of other people who have written some wonderful books. But the nice thing about dream interpretation and authors like these is that they feel that everybody's dream symbols are unique to themselves. And so, it's not like these dream dictionaries that you can open up and a dog means this. I mean, it might mean that if you like dogs, but if you don't like dogs or were, attacked by a dog, then the dream symbol of a dog might have a whole different meaning for you. And so everybody's dream symbols are uniquely their own. And that's why I like these authors like Gayle Delaney or Patricia Garfield. They really help you kind of question the dream symbol so you get your own unique personal meaning.
That's very interesting to me because, I often have heard before that, when you're dreaming of falling off a cliff, it means an insecurity here or stuff like that. And to me, what if I fall off a cliff? It's because I dreamt I fell off a cliff.
Yeah, it really is a personal thing, and so you really got to look into it as a personal thing. But yeah, if for those people out there who want to get some more quality books on dream interpretation, anything by Gayle Delaney, the books by Patricia Garfield, they'll give you better insights than most.
Can you tell us about your books? You have Lucid Dreaming and Lucid Dreaming Plain and Simple.
Yeah, so the first book came out in 2008, at the end of 2008, and that's Lucid Dreaming, Gateway to the Inner Self. So this book has kind of two parts. It kind of talks about how I taught myself how to lucid dream back in 1975, but all the realizations I had along the way, because again, the scientific evidence didn't emerge until like 1980, 1981. And so I had 6 years as a lucid dreamer to kind of figure it out on my own. And if you really want to learn a subject, if you got to figure it out on your own by trial and error, I mean, you're really going to learn the lessons very well. And so I've learned all these lessons of lucidity. And so the first half of the book is kind of my personal journey as I kept going deeper, and how in 1985 I realized that there is an awareness behind the dream. That in a lucid dream you can stop what you're doing, you can shout out questions to the awareness behind the dream, like show me something important for me to see, or let me experience whatever it is, unconditional love, and have just utterly profound experiences. And so that was really a fantastic insight to realize that there's a larger awareness. It's not really something you can see. It's interesting that 8 years after that, I think in 1993, Carlos Castaneda came out with the book The Art of Dreaming. And in that book, his shamanic teacher, Don Juan, tells him that we have a dream emissary that is this non-visible voice that will respond to our questions and requests within lucid dreams. But the strange thing is, I discovered that back in 1985 and been talking about it to people for a number of years. And so I already knew that was basically a valid point. But the book also goes on. I
I bring up how in 1995 I decided to try to go beyond lucid dreaming, because I realized all of this, whether it's the dream or the lucid dream or even waking reality, was basically a co-constructed or co-created reality of the waking self with the larger self kind of working together to create personal experience. And so I realized that if I was ever going to understand the source of all of this, I had to go beyond it. I had to kind of let go of myself completely. And that's when I began to have just wild experiences. Normally each night I'd fall asleep, or frequently I'd fall asleep, and the entire night it would be nothing but blue light. And I remember the first time it happened, I woke up that morning and I thought, gosh, what do I put in my dream journal? Blue light? What's happening to me? And it's amazing how deep lucid dreaming takes me. It finally brought me to the door where I agreed to allow myself to have an experience of non-duality, to basically cease to be. And that night I had an experience of non-duality, which later I learned, 3 years later I learned, was the Buddhist goal of dream yoga, is to use lucid dreaming and the dream yoga philosophy to completely let go of the self and have an experience of non-duality. And so the first part of the book covers that. The second part of the book, though, is covering these other topics, like using lucid dreams to get information outside of your own knowing, and using lucid dreaming for physical healing. In that book, there's a wonderful chapter on physical healing with about a dozen examples of people, and I mean very thoughtful, intelligent people, a lot of them have PhDs, who in a lucid dream stopped what they were doing to basically heal their physical body. And so I give about a dozen examples of success using that and how the people went about it. And then I also give 2 or 3 examples of people who didn't have success, just to show how they went about it differently, which is probably why they didn't have any success with physical healing in a lucid dream. Also in that book is a chapter on interacting with the deceased in lucid dreams. Just lots of examples from people who get information from deceased loved ones. Sometimes deceased people they know who aren't relatives, but the deceased person is trying to get them to pass on a message to the relatives. And so that's pretty wild. And so also there's a chapter on mutual lucid dreams, interacting with others in lucid dream state. So the first book, Lucid Dreaming Gateway to the Inner Self, is the more advanced book, and I wrote it just because the other books were way too simple. They weren't showing people the depth of lucid dreaming, and I wanted that to get out there. And so that book is in its 9th printing, which for a book on dreams, to make it to its 9th printing is almost unheard of. The second book that I co-wrote with my co-author Caroline McCready in London, it's called Lucid Dreaming Plain and Simple. And like the name suggests, it's basically just giving a beginner everything you need to know in order to have the techniques on how to become lucid, understand the science behind lucid dreaming so you can realize it's not woo-woo. There's whole scientific evidence behind it. Also, all the information about how to stabilize the lucid dream, because a lot of people have lucid dreams. Probably 7 out of 10 people have had a lucid dream if they're under the age of 30. But a lot of them realize that if they get too excited, they'll immediately pop out. And so this book gives you all the information you need on how to stay in the lucid dream so you have a nice, long, satisfying lucid dream. And that gives you information on how to explore in a thoughtful way. And so it includes chapters on meditating within a lucid dream, which is really a fantastic spiritual practice to do in a lucid dream, emotional healing in a lucid dream, and also physical healing in a lucid dream, because I think those are the easiest, most directly accessible practices that you can do in a lucid dream to kind of show yourself that there's more going on there. So that's what the books are about, and it's one of those things. If you get your head in the game, if you start to focus on lucid dreams, oftentimes people tell me within the first 50 pages they'll have their first lucid dreams. So you gotta get in the game if you're gonna. You gotta play if you're gonna win.
For the people who have a hard time even remembering their dreams, do you have any advice for them that they can start to, remember or at least recognize and remember a dream long enough to be lucid?
Yeah. So, a lot of us just get out of the habit of remembering our dreams. And so what I encourage people to do is make it a priority. Tell yourself before you go to sleep, in the morning, I can easily recall my dreams tonight, and I'll find it easy to recall. But then when you wake up in the middle of the night, the first thing you got to do is think, what was I just dreaming? Because if you ask yourself that in the first 10 seconds, what was I just dreaming? Then oftentimes you can remember, oh yeah, I was dreaming of, this and that, and we're back at our childhood home, and blah, blah, blah. And if you have a dream journal by the side of your bed, you can make some notes, and oftentimes when you see those notes in the morning, it'll bring back the entire dream. And so by making it a priority, by making your first thought, what was I just dreaming? Don't look at your cell phone, don't worry about people texting you or anything. Just think the first thing, what was I just dreaming? That really helps. Now, there are some people who might be taking medications or might have sleep apnea or something like that. That's actually kind of inhibiting their dream recall. So if you have that kind of stuff going on, you should check into that or look at the side effects of the medications and see if dream recall is one of the factors. Probably the final thing that sometimes happens is this. Some people have had a lot of trauma in their life and have just told themselves not to remember their dreams. I remember once I was giving a talk in Colorado. A young guy raised his hand and said he was 26 years old and hadn't remembered a dream in 10 years. And so I just asked him, I go, look, what happened to you 10 years ago, when you were 16? What happened? And he said, oh, gosh, now that I think about it, my parents had a horrible divorce. And so I told him, well, look, back then he might have consciously or subconsciously told himself not to remember his dreams anymore because, he couldn't deal with the nightmares, because he's kind of living the nightmare of his parents having this ugly divorce. And so I told him, if you want to have your dream life come back, just tell your larger awareness before you go to sleep, hey, self, I'm ready to remember my dreams. I allow myself to remember my dreams. The next morning I saw him, and he just was jumping up and down as soon as he saw me. He said he had made that suggestion to himself before he went to sleep, and he said as soon as he fell asleep, it was like a slideshow of 10 years of dream images, just one after the other, just image after image after image, and he was so happy that he could dream again. So remembering dreams takes a little bit of self-effort. For most of us, it's just getting back into the habit of thinking immediately upon waking, what was I just dreaming?
I've had some crazy dreams. I like to watch a lot of horror movies and have since I was a little kid. And Jason from Friday the 13th was chasing me through my backyard. And I just stopped and I said, you know what? I said, I'll marry you if you don't kill my family. So I said, do you want a cup of coffee? And he nodded his head. So we went in the house, and I never had a wedding and didn't really marry him, but he came in the house, had a cup of coffee, and he didn't kill my family.
Oh, yeah. Sue, one of the beautiful things about your example there is that's what I always tell people when I give workshops on lucid dreaming, is if you become lucidly aware, and there's some aggressive dream figure there, whether it's Freddy Krueger or some angry Rottweiler barking at you or something, if you can just lucidly project love and compassion on it, just from your heart, be nice to it, just like you were nice to Freddy Krueger, oftentimes that'll change the whole dynamic of the experience. Like you start to project love and compassion onto the witch, all of a sudden it'll shrink down, into a little doll. Or you project love and compassion onto the angry Rottweiler, and all of a sudden, it's a poodle or a wiener dog or something like that. It's just something that's not very threatening. And so that's what I always encourage people. If you ever have a dream experience where something's being really aggressive, project love and compassion onto it, and normally that'll change everything. The other thing you can do in a lucid dream is you can ask it, what do you represent? And so, like, if you went up to Freddy Krueger and just said, hey, what do you represent? Freddy Krueger might respond something like your fear of the unknown, or your fear of success, or something like that, and really blow your mind, because oftentimes in these lucid dream experiences, if you know how to respond, if you know how to interact with the dream figures, you can get some incredible insights into the nature of your self, and where your head's really at.
That's pretty fascinating. I didn't know you could do that.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing what you could do. In our second book, Lucid Dreaming, Plain and Simple, my co-author, Carolyn McCready, she has a wonderful story where she became lucidly aware, and so she shouted out to the awareness behind the dream, show me my greatest fear. Because us lucid dreamers, we realize that what constrains us as people, or what keeps us from kind of being our full potential, is all of us get hung up by our fears. We get, we have lots of talents, but if we have fears, we get constrained. So in her lucid dream, she shouted out, show me my greatest fear. And all of a sudden, as soon as she shouted that out, in front of her stood the Grim Reaper, death. And oh my God, she wasn't ready for that. I mean, she wasn't ready to meet her greatest fear. And so even though she was lucidly aware, she decided, oh crap, I've got to wake up. And so, because she is so afraid. And so she woke up, and she said the strange thing was, all of a sudden, she rolled over in bed, and she realized someone was in bed with her, and she looked, and it was death again. The Grim Reaper was laying in bed with her. And then she screamed again, and that time she woke up. So the what eventually happened, though, was a month later, she worked through some of her thinking about death and kind of came to understand it as kind of a natural process that's been going on for millions of years. And so she kind of got okay with it. And then in a lucid dream, a month later, she shouted out for her greatest fear to reappear. And once again, death reappeared. But this time she wasn't afraid, and she and Death had kind of a conversation and came to a meeting of the minds, and she got over her fear of death, and she said it was really an utterly profound moment. So that's one of the beautiful things about lucid dreams. You can talk to Freddy Krueger. You can ask him, what do you represent, or why are you here? You can meet your greatest fear, and if you keep your heads together, you can make peace with it, and you can really grow as a person if you know how to use lucid dreaming thoughtfully.
I wish I did, because, I wish I did before this. My greatest fear is mice and rats. And I'm in this big abandoned house, and I mean, there's nothing in there except a couch and a table and a TV and a big, huge room, and all there was mice on everything. Everywhere I turned, mice and rats, and I'm like, I don't know how I'm going to get out of here, and I started hyperventilating, and I would go towards the door, and all the mice would you'd see them just popping out of everywhere, and they just kept multiplying, and I said, I'm not going to get out of here, I'm going to die, and it just built and built until finally I said, do I have to pinch myself to wake up? Is this a dream? You got to get me out of here. And I mean, I was so beside myself when I woke up. I'm like, I'm never going to sleep again. Nope. That was horrible.
I remember reading a story of one lucid dreamer who had a fear of insects, and really had a bad fear. But one time in a lucid dream, she decided she's going to try to resolve her fear of insects. And so she shrunk herself down in the lucid dream to a cockroach size. And then she had a conversation with a cockroach and realized that they weren't quite so nasty after all. and after that lucid dream, she got over her fear of cockroaches and other little insects. So Sue, in your next lucid dream, you could shrink down to the size of a mouse and kind of talk it out and kind of see the nice thing about mice. Maybe you'd overcome that fear.
They're so cute, and the problem is not with the mouse. The fact that it scurries and it can climb on my up my pant leg, or up my leg, or run across my feet, or it's the scurrying that I can't even to think about. It makes my skin crawl. So that's the fear of it. I mean, mice are cute if I could bring myself to look at them for more than a second. But it's funny because I was laying in my bed and I was playing on my computer, and my boyfriend, he was across the room on his computer, and he's looking at me and he's smirking, and I'm like, I knew something was going on. Well, I happened to look out of the corner of my eye, and there's a mouse standing on the floor looking at me. And I was like, I gotta get out of here. I can't be here. And I mean, that was torturous. So, you know what? I'm going to have to use this lucid dreaming thing just so I can function. I mean, there's mice outside in the grass. There's mice everywhere. And in my life, there's mice everywhere.
That's great. It is beautiful, though. Lucid dreaming has been used by people to overcome phobias, to work through anxiety. There's even been a report of a lucid dreamer who used it to quit smoking, and just suddenly after the lucid dream just totally quit. So it's amazing what you can do when you know how to work with lucid dreams. And that's why I've written these books, is because I've been lucid dreaming for 40 years now, and I just want people to learn by my examples and the principles that I've learned, how they can be better lucid dreamers faster and reap the benefits of it.
I think it's fascinating, and I think I'm going to stop fearing and start enjoying it.
That's the spirit.
Can you give us your website so we know how we can find you and your books?
Sure, yeah. The book website is Lucid Advice, so that's lucidadvice.com, Lucid, lucidadvice.com. And there you can check out the books, read some of the reviews, click your way to purchase it if you want to. Also, there's a place there where people can leave questions, because I know sometimes people have their own unique experiences or questions they want to bring up. And then we also have a free online magazine. If you go to luciddreammagazine.com, you can check out the latest issue. Normally, I'll interview somebody each issue. Then we'll have 5 or 6 articles. And then we'll have like 10 or 15 pages of lucid dreams that submitted by the readers, and that kind of gives you a variety of what people are doing, because you have everything from beginners' first lucid dreams to experienced lucid dreamers who are just doing profound stuff. So lucidadvice.com or luciddreammagazine.com, those would be the places where you could learn more about the books.
I'm definitely interested in getting those books. Every time I go on here and see them, I'm like, things are a little bit tight right now, but I got to get on there and get those books, because that stuff, it's fascinating.
Oh, it's amazing what you can do, and especially interacting with deceased loved ones. But if you can become lucidly aware in those moments, you can have just powerful, life-changing conversations.
Well, I definitely have before, but, now that I'm aware, that I can be aware that I'm dreaming and let that go, I'm looking forward to trying that when I go to sleep again.
Well, great. Well, Sue, thank you so much for having me here on your program.
Well, I want to thank you so much for taking your time to come on. This was an amazing interview, and I had a lot of fun, and I learned a lot.
Well, good. And best wishes to all the lucid dreamers listening, and check out the book again at lucidadvice.com or luciddreammagazine.com, and hope that everyone can take it as far as they can.
Well, thank you so much, and I'd love to have you back on again.
Sounds good.
All right.
Okay.
Bye-bye. That was an amazing interview, guys. That was a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun, and yes, I did learn a lot. Something about the mystery of dreaming is amazing, and to know that you can lucid dream and just free fall and have the best time and make that dream be whatever you want it to be is pretty amazing. So I had a lot of fun with that, and I'm thankful to have, the guests that come on the show, because they're all great, and you listeners are equally great. If it wasn't for you guys, we wouldn't have a show. Well, that's all we have time for today. We post our shows on YouTube, and if you want to know more about our guests and upcoming shows, please visit our info2rail web page. Just Google info2rail, and click on our Google websites, or you can click on YouTube from there. I want to thank you again, each and every one of you, for joining us here at Info2rail. As I said, the guests and the listeners are what makes this possible, and I want to thank each and every one of you for your support in allowing my dreams to come true. I love doing this. This is amazing, and hopefully I can. I'm viewer funded, so I'm hoping to be able to make enough to continue to go on here doing these shows, because I love what I do. Sometimes money gets a little bit tight, and that's what happens. But as long as I can, I'll be here with you guys. I hope to see you here each and every week. You guys are awesome. I want to thank everybody who comes on and subscribes on YouTube. That means the world to me, and I just want to thank you guys so much for taking that time. You can also find me on Facebook as well. Stop by, check out the interviews and stuff. There's some great ones. You guys are amazing. May God bless you and keep you, and may His face shine upon you in these uncertain times. We'll see you soon.